6.5 years ago now, I bought myself 17.5 acres of land instead of buying myself a house. And best decision I've ever made, really. And I just thought I'd do this long form video as a bit of a catch up about what's been going on this winter and where we've actually got to in those 6.5 years, because it's been a long time in the making. A lot of progress has been made and a lot of hard work has been put in. Now, starting on sort of day one, pretty much, put a trackway in, started hacking through 1,000 brambles, because this entire place had about 10-foot, 12-foot perimeter of brambles around every single fence line, because it had been about 10 years since someone had occupied it. Just like a good amount of the perimeter still is a lot of brambles, I've just trimmed them back, so they're only about 8 feet thick now. The next big step on getting in here and getting the land usable was putting a big access track in. As you can see here, put this big track in. That's about 250-300 metres long of track that I had to put in to first start. Then we put a couple of gates in to secure the yard area we were building up around these couple of old sheds. As you can see now, I've took all the cladding off these sheds because we used it on other projects. But what we have here is my original tool shed, which I've made out of pallets. That's whole pallets, that is. And then another shed that's made out of pallets that used to be for packing eggs in. And at the same sort of time as I was doing all that, as soon as I could get the lorry down here, we got this giant feed bin put in for all the chickens, because just getting bulk food delivered was saving about £1,000 a month on the actual chicken food bill. Now, buying bagged food for chickens is the usual go-to when you've got a small flock, and I was doing that for a hell of a long time before I got this place. Basically, as I was putting in the track here, I had a company come and put in a polytunnel for me, because at that point in time wasn't confident builder like I am now, and I felt like someone else needed to do it to get it done right. And this polytunnel housed about 1,000 chickens for a good 1.5 to 2 years, so it served its purpose really well. And obviously the chickens were a full money enterprise, so this actually paid for itself within that first flock. So it's been a nice free building to have up ever since, even though it's a temporary building, and now it just gets used for storing all my wood. Now, I was pretty fortunate, because I had my little business going already, that I had a little bit of capital to do all these things to start with. Now, I did at the same time take out a small personal loan to get a few big things done, because I knew that the road was going to cost a hell of a lot of money, and I knew that setting up the chickens again here was going to be a hell of a load of money as well, because that polytunnel was quite a few thousand, believe it or not. But it did mean that progress in those first few months did fly along, because I had a lot of people doing things for me, so to speak. The people that built that polytunnel got that done before I actually finished the trackway into the main yard area. And basically at the same sort of time as the polytunnel and the track were going in, putting a load of fence in like this. As you can see, it's just a chicken wire, one post every so often, a bit of wood along the bottom, a bit of wood along the top, 6 foot high. It's pretty much a whole acre that way, and then put a load of like heavy logs and bits of slab and things like that all the way around the perimeter to stop the foxes getting in. Now, that was a pretty successful method at producing eggs, because it's a small enough flock that they don't really bully each other too much. Plenty of space for them to do everything. Just worked really well. So decided on this next field here to do a really similar thing, but you may have seen regenerative agricultural style, pulling them around on sled based houses. Now, we were doing that in this field, and that worked super well as well. As you can see now, I've got allotments on the one strip, but basically on that one strip back there, the way you can see allotments going all the way down, we used to run a chicken shed up and down like that, and it worked perfect. So then decided to put in quite a few more on this field, had a 6 in total, and then though, unfortunately hit some brackets. This was about 2 years in. Much those brackets, in my opinion, are just designed to keep small farms small, because suddenly then your jumping infrastructure costs to house your chickens are a hell of a lot more, and basically it's either forcing you down 2 routes. You've either got to do things cheap to do things twice, which is obviously not good, is it? Or you've got to take out finance to do things, which I had to do. And that way then could keep my houses in such a way that the man deemed okay, effectively, which in my opinion just isn't the way to do things, because as soon as we moved all the chickens from the outdoor runs, moving them around into the chicken houses, caused all sorts of problems. Had a lot of chickens all of a sudden henpecking each other, and we got a massive reduction in eggs basically. And I'm sure that's because they weren't getting the massive amount of extra protein they were getting from the field, because in here, I've done other videos on it in the past, but just mow the lawn and mow the tops of the grass off and then just leave it on, and then that way the worms, invertebrates, all sorts of things feed on the rotting grass, and then that way you're feeding your chickens through massive amounts of invertebrates in your ground. But it did mean that I had to get planning permission for this big livestock house here, which ultimately is not a bad thing, because big legitimate building like this does add value to the farm overall, and it is very useful. Just about to house a load more things now, so always good to have on ready. And it is one of those things I advise people do try and put up straight away when they get their own piece of land, is some sort of barn or something, because it's very useful to have. You can do a lot of things when you've got some sort of structure on there that you're not going to worry about the council coming and taking away. But as well as getting all that sorted and getting the chickens moved into the livestock house and everything, it coincided with Brexit and a few other things that meant the feed price for the chickens went insane. So at one point in time it became much cheaper to just buy eggs in and sell them than it did to actually produce eggs myself, which destroyed the whole object of the farm for me. So we got out of the chicken game shortly after that, but now everything has stabilised up again, getting back into it. It's all peaks and troughs, isn't it? But big businesses can deal with those peaks and troughs, whereas small businesses like myself, you have to find other things to do when you're in those troughs, which is one of the main reasons why I started doing things like the allotments, which you saw over there, renting those out to people, because a bit of extra income for me each month, which sort of covers a few bills, and then that way gives other people a good opportunity to actually use stuff for predominantly chickens and animals themselves, because other allotments in the towns and stuff don't allow things like that usually. And overall it's been a pretty positive experience renting out the allotments to people. Most people have been really good, and we've had basically zero problems. We had one person that left quite a bit of rubbish on their plot, and it was quite clear they were giving up their plot, and then basically kicked up a fuss about picking it up, but it was minor. It was only a couple of barrows loads worth in the end. But renting out allotments and having no trouble from them really did lead me on to lending out another bit of my land at the bottom there for some people that were using an airsoft. Now, you've probably seen the videos on that, but that was a right debacle in the end. Basically, they've tried to screw me over big time for no real reason as far as I'm concerned. I don't really think I'll ever fully understand his reasoning behind it, because we basically had a deal where he would just take all the stuff that he wanted, all of his good things, and I'd just chop up the pallets and get rid of the rest of the stuff that they'd leave. And then he reneged on that agreement and then told the police that I stole his items, and then tried to basically take me to court, saying all sorts of ridiculous things, that I'd damaged his business and all sorts of nonsense basically, which was all null and void by basically the terms of the lease agreement I'd gave him. But he still tried to pursue that anyway, and probably still will. But yeah, from that, never lending any land to anyone again, just going to do my own thing forever now, which is a good thing, because this winter we've been doing quite a lot of stuff out of living willow, as you can see here, building the new generation of chicken house on the farm, which is going to be a living structure. Now most of it, obviously when it grows in, it's going to be pretty covered over by plants and stuff, and we're just going to put like a little tarp structure inside here to make all this like a fully waterproofed area, and then we'll slap some nest boxes in, and the chickens can pretty much just be using this to lay their eggs in, and the rest of the time they can range over this field, which I'm going to divide into several portions, so without moving the chickens around I can limit what area they're on, and that way we can basically mean they don't overgraze one particular area too much. And then in the winter time, when it gets really boggy in parts, we can bring them back into this area that I've sort of planted a few trees around already, as you can see. I'm going to put a fence around it, but then as soon as that's in, we've got basically a little 1/8 of an acre area here. We have to house about 100-150 chickens, and then we'll have lots of eggs coming in that we can be making into Scotch eggs and sausage rolls, that sort of thing again. As I forgot to mention about that, but basically the other half of the business that used to be the major part of the business was market stall trading for Scotch eggs, sausage rolls, big food festival events, things like that, and that used to make a decent portion of money that would basically add value to the product, so to speak. We'd produce the pigs, we'd produce the eggs, and then that way you get maximum value out of it. Instead of selling an egg for 30p, you sell an egg for £1.50. But a bit of personal strife between me and the ex-partner meant that that business had to sort of fizzle away, which was a shame, because it was also a good amount of sales for the actual farm itself. But now, going to be doing all that again, and with a smaller number of chickens, hopefully we'll just be able to make Scotch eggs and sell Scotch eggs, and won't actually have to be selling any eggs individually. Although I do really want to get into selling hatching eggs and stuff like that, because a lot of people think it's fun. I think it's fun to hatch chickens, and becoming more of a big thing, actually breeding nice looking chickens rather than chickens that are just for pumping out eggs. And the other side of the business was a lot of pigs. Now basically we've been breeding them for two things, for meat and to sell as piglets, because we were breeding kuni piglets, and still are, which is basically what people class as a micro pig. So they are really good pets effectively, and a lot of people like to have them on their homestead small holding as just an animal to have around, because they don't really cause too much mess in the fields either. They're a grazing pig, so they actually keep the grass down a little bit like sheep do. And the meat is actually quite tasty as well. I've eaten quite a few of them now, and they're good. Bacon's good. Just generally the whole pig's good. It's more of a traditional meat, I would say, because there's a hell of a lot more fat in the meat compared to like a commercial pork you would buy. At the same time, it's got permission for the big livestock house, got permission for this barn as well. This is basically just the lean-to of it. As you can see by that big pole up there, that's the actual proper height of it, and we've still got 4 bays to put on this way, but it's a money thing, isn't it? It's the next big job on the list though. I'm currently saving to get the wood for that now, because hopefully that's a job we'll get done this summer. When lockdown came along, also started building this little roundhouse as a bit of a fun project to do. It's made from sandbags, compressed together, a bit of barbed wire in between each layer, and then when we've got it up to height, rendered the outside, and as you can see, it's got a nice lovely green roof on it too. Bit of a fun experiment, that one, as it's made from all materials from around the farm, or upcycled materials, apart from a couple of boards. Everything else is from the farm, so it was real good to build that. It was a nice fun project. And that's basically what's inspired me to do a lot of other sandbag construction around the farm, because I really like the building method. It's hard work, but it's fairly cheap to do, and you don't need any skill to do it, and it's quite form-fitting. You can get a lot of different structures out of it very easily and pretty much make whatever you want. I've been doing a hell of a lot of walls out of it around the roundhouse and then up over towards the house. Got caught by the cold this winter though, and we had to stop, so I'm going to have to replace a good amount of these bags on top now, because a hell of a lot of them have got sun damage last summer, and then with the animals like cats walking around on them, they've split apart a good amount. But those sandbags are literally like 10p a piece, so it's no big deal. It's just an hour's effort to fix them all, and then in the next couple of weeks we'll actually get all that finished. The biggest project by far though over the last few years has been my own house. Now it's took about a year and a bit to build it in total, and it was a hell of a lot of graft, but done it really cheap and done it all myself. It was a hell of a learning curve to do most of it. Learned how to do pretty much more than just basic plumbing and all of the electrics. Now a lot of it's self-taught, like I say, but it's all from YouTube and reading the relevant documents. I haven't just willy-nilly had a go at it. I've obviously done a fair amount of research on doing it, because I get a fair few comments about my electrics and all that, but it's been seen by numerous electricians. It's all good. But as well as it being a really long, tough project to do, it was fun, and it's a big achievement, I feel, getting that house all done by myself, and it did give me quite a bit of joy the day we moved in. As soon as we got carpets in there, moved straight in. As good as the roundhouse was when I was living in that, the house is far superior. It was just way better being able to come in from hard graft around the farm and actually get yourself in a comfortable scenario straight away, rather than having to shower, get changed, get the log burner on, do all that jazz after a hard day's graft. It's just straight into a warm house. Comfort. It's a real good feeling. And then that pretty much just brings us to about a year ago now, when I started doing a lot more videos from around the farm on TikTok, Instagram and Facebook, as well as just YouTube. Got a bit more traction, and then I've just basically been doing a lot of fun things over the last year, finishing off a lot of the farm that needs finishing before this year we're on a big push again to actually start producing a good amount of food here. And yeah, there's a hell of a lot of big projects coming up this year. We've got the barn to do, we've got the whole veg area needs a massive rework. We're installing fish tanks for fish farming. We've got sheep coming, we've got chickens hatching, we've got some more eggs that we're picking up in a couple of weeks to be hatching out also. I'm going to be going basically to visit a little friend of mine, a little bit of a secret project, but we'll be collecting some eggs in the incubator and breeding some of our own chickens from his flock basically. And pretty much just be producing food the way food should be produced, on a slightly smaller scale, by someone that you can know, because everything gets a bit ropey, doesn't it, when you get to factory style settings, especially when animals become numbers. I've been there myself basically with the chickens. The animals became a bit of a number at that scale, whereas when you've only got a small flock, every chicken matters, and you basically take a lot more care over the whole general process, because when you've got 10,000 eggs a day, yeah, you don't care if you break 30, whereas if you've only got 50 eggs a day, you definitely care if you break 2. And I just can't quite wait to sort of be able to be doing markets again and be selling things to people that actually enjoy, and seeing people enjoy the things that I produce, basically, because it is a good feeling. And it's a nice connect, basically, to see the full process. Like, I've seen that chicken get fed, I've seen that egg be produced, I've turned that egg into something that then someone else has come along, thought was really good, that they've bought more. That sort of thing is the full circle, isn't it? So yeah, if you're not a subscriber already, do subscribe. Feel free to go and check out the other forms as well, because TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, a lot of short content on there that you might enjoy. Till next time then, bye bye.